14-year-old schoolgirl killed in broad daylight. Jodi Jones had everything to live for, but her life was cut cruelly short when she was brutally attacked.
Jodi had been beaten. Her throat was cut between 12 and 20 times.
That is the most brutal murder that I've came across. Whoever committed this murder is a total psychopath.
It was a maniac roaming among us.
Suspicion pretty quickly fell on her boyfriend, Luke. He was a dope-smoking, kind of feral youth, scary gothic character.
Luke Mitchell was a devil worshipper.
This stuff was being gobbled up insatiably in broadsheets as well as tabloids.
A 15-year-old boy has been charged with the murder of Jodi Jones.
There's something wrong with this conviction.
There is no forensic evidence to link him to the crime.
The person that carried out this brutal murder would have definitely had blood on him.
If we found something that could exonerate Luke Mitchell or implicate someone else, it would be massive.
There was DNA, male DNA, on the body, but it wasn't Luke's.
We've only been here a short space of time. Straight away, we spoke about another two potential suspects. We've got another person of interest that absolutely shocked me. There's a guy by the name of Mark Kane. He's turned up with scratches in his face.
If Luke Mitchell didn't kill Jodi, somebody else did.
I can't be more clear. I absolutely did not kill Jodi. I want to clear my name.
The boyfriend of 14-year-old Dalkeith schoolgirl Jodi Jones has gone on trial, accused of her murder.
The jury are being asked to decide if a 14-year-old girl was murdered by her 14-year-old boyfriend.
Luke Mitchell's trial began in a blaze of publicity in November 2004, 18 months after the murder of Jodi Jones.
This was in the media across the whole of Scotland. This was a massive story.
This case became monstrous. It wasn't just an issue that obsessed the police and the prosecution services and the legal world and the press. This obsessed everybody. Everyone was talking about this.
And this emphasis on the evil, on the occult, on the Satanist.
Inside, I was screaming like a lunatic. On the outside, I was relatively calm because in my head, I thought, right, okay, this has happened, but the lawyers know the truth and it'll all come right.
With no murder weapon, no confession, and no forensic evidence, the Crown's case against Luke Mitchell was entirely circumstantial.
Circumstantial evidence is a number of different circumstances which, taken on their own, might mean little or sometimes nothing, but when put together in a particular way, point the finger towards the accused.
The prosecution case depended on three central planks. Firstly, that he found the body, and the assumption was that since he found the body, he must have known where it was. Secondly, that he was seen by an independent witness.
A local woman had seen a young couple just before the murder. She later identified Luke Mitchell as the male she saw.
The alibi that he claimed to have was not accepted.
The final plank in the prosecution's case against Luke Mitchell was that his mother gave him a false alibi and burnt evidence to protect him.
Luke's alibi was that he was at home cooking dinner and having dinner with his mum and his brother.
Having heard all the evidence and being cautioned not to rush to judgment, the jury retired on the 20th of January, 2005. 24 hours later, They found Luke Mitchell guilty.
Lord Nimmo Smith told him, "You can rightly be regarded as wicked."
I was still going through my trial expecting that the jury would see through all the lies and all the misinterpretation of the purely circumstantial evidence. I was still believing that I would be found not guilty. And when I was found guilty, if I wasn't gripping the bench at the dock so tightly, I would have collapsed.
I have no recollection of him being laid down. No. Some things you have to blot out.
Luke Mitchell was then led away without a flicker of emotion.
Like so many families that I've met in the same circumstances, they believe it'll all come out in court. It is not until the foreman of the jury stands up and says guilty that these people realise that truth's not coming out.
Lord Nimmo Smith told Luke Mitchell he'd serve at least 20 years in prison.
Press made a huge thing about, oh, the beast showed no emotion. When I saw him immediately afterwards, that'll be etched on my brain forever. He was deathly white, his eyes were like saucers, and his lips were blue. They want emotion. Come and see my son right now. You'll see emotion.
They've taken everything from me. My friends, my family, my home, my childhood, my adolescence, my early adult years. But they will not bully a false admission of guilt out of me. As long as I can get up every morning and look myself in the mirror and hold my head up high, I'll get through this.
If Mitchell's guilty, then he deserves to rot in prison for the rest of his life. But equally, if he's not guilty, then society has done something dreadful, and we need to look at ourselves.
Former detectives John Sallins and Mick Neal have agreed to re-examine the case against Luke Mitchell for this documentary.
John and I will be looking for something that somebody's missed. It might be as simple as that. Somebody's maybe missed something.
Scientists at the Forensic Institute in Glasgow specialise in criminal casework in the UK and internationally.
Alan, obviously Michael and I have been up at the crime scene and we're looking for your sort of overview on this.
First time I heard about the case was when I was approached by the defence to give a view on the scientific evidence. At that time there was no scientific evidence specifically against Mr Mitchell, and that was quite curious given that it was a very bloody event. Normally we would expect to find some evidence at the scene or on the supposed perpetrator.
Luke's clothing was not only seized, but it was forensically examined, and there was no traces of forensic evidence found on Luke to link him to Jodi. There was dirt found under his fingernails, and his hair was described as being dirty, I believe. What lengths would you have to go to get rid of every trace of forensic evidence? What I'm basically asking, jumping in the shower and using standard shower gel, would that do it?
Well, the fact that his hair was messy and his nails still had dirt would suggest he hadn't showered. Would suggest.
Suggest, yeah.
If the assumption is this person's got a lot of blood on them, well, first of all, even if you wipe your hands on your clothes now, well, they clearly never did that if they've seized the clothes early on. And then he's got to go home, he's got to go in the front door, he's got to turn on the taps to wash, and there's all of these things that are potential sources of evidence. Finding Jodi Jones' blood on that door handle or that tap, that begins to mean something in the context of the case.
For Luke to have escaped, he would have had to come up this street. Now just have a look. Look how wide open it is. The houses look right out onto the road. There's no fences. And the idea that a killer covered in blood would have managed to come up this street unseen in broad daylight on a beautiful summer evening is ridiculous.
Police raided and searched Luke Mitchell's home 3 times before he was finally arrested in April 2004. No traces of Jodi Jones' blood was ever found. "17 years after the murder of Jodi Jones, the quiet town of Dalkeith remains in the public spotlight as Luke Mitchell continues to maintain his innocence.
Why do you still live in this area?
Because we've done nothing wrong, and it's my home. Just if we were to leave, people would think, oh, they're running away. And we're not running away. We're not running away from anything because we haven't done anything to run away from.
When he got convicted, I think 2005 till now, he's had the opportunity to plead guilty to this and he's refused.
Part of the parole board hearings, I think, is would they accept your guilt? And if people can come to terms and accept their guilt, it's a good mark for them for getting parole, but Luke's determined not to do that.
He will never, ever say he's guilty for something he's not guilty of. Why would you do that? You would have to live with that for the rest of your life. So he wants out acquitted, which is what I'm fighting for, an acquittal.
If it was put to me that I would almost be guaranteed release and parole if all I did was admit guilt, absolutely not. I would not do that. I will not admit to something I've not done. I will maintain my innocence, and if that means that I stay in closed conditions for the rest of my life if need be, then that's what will happen.
With no forensic evidence against Luke Mitchell, police turned their attention to eyewitness evidence, linking him to Jodi just before she was murdered.
Identification. That's the crux of things. If someone's been identified, you can't get any better evidence than identification.
Local woman Andrina Bryson came forward during the investigation. She had driven past a young couple at the entrance to the path just before the murder.
She'd said she was driving through East Houses towards Newton Grange and came round a sharp bend. There was a girl standing on the pavement and a guy in the entrance track as she drove round this sharp bend.
She identified Luke Mitchell as the male from a photographic lineup shown to her by police.
Andrina Bryson's evidence is probably the most critical in terms of the conviction.
The former detectives will now recreate Andrina Bryson's journey and re-examine her eyewitness evidence.
Right, John, so that's us. We've confirmed the route, and that's the same route as Andrina Bryson drove.
It's basically a test to see what you would actually see driving at 30 miles per hour.
They place a young couple to stand in the exact position on the path as described by Andrina Bryson in her statement.
Put your back to the cars, and I want you to look over your right shoulder.
We've got a young female member of my family who's similar in age to Andrina Bryson was at the time. Neve's totally unaware of the whole inquiry, the whole Jodi Jones murder. She was too young at the time to know anything about it. And all she's aware of today is that she's going to be driving a car. That's all she's been asked to do. Right, we're off. So you've never been this area at Edinburgh before, Neve?
No.
No. Right, okay.
Tell you what I'll do, I want you to stand with your hands like that, OK? The car will come down the hill past Zoe, and I want you to look as if you're having a conversation with her, OK?
We're going to drive a route that Andrina Bryson drove. And at the end of that, John's going to ask Niamh questions in relation to what happened during the drive on that route. You've gone left at the bottom here.
Right, Niamh, you've been on that route, is there anything you've seen? Did anything stand out?
Not really.
OK, that's fine. You're going to do it again?
Yeah.
Right. She's obviously aware now that she's got to be looking for something. So we'll see if she sees anything this time.
Going left, next left, Niamh.
Hi, Niamh.
Hello.
That's your second run. This time, did you see anything out of the ordinary?
Don't think so.
That's fine. Third time. OK. Thank you.
We've sort of proven there that there's nothing that's particularly drawn Niamh's attention to the couple, so we're going to do it a third time and I'm going to point them out to her. Right, so we'll do the same again.
OK.
It's run number 3, Niamh, and for this one I'm going to sit in the front with you, OK?
OK.
Same as before, just same directions. Try and keep your speed up a bit. You two arguing?
Looks like it.
Is she all right?
Well, now, Niamh, have a wee chat with your pal. It's experiment finished. Third time lucky. Is there anything that stood out for you?
Probably in the middle of the drive, I seen two people looking like they had an argument or something.
Can you describe them?
The girl, I think, had blonde hair and she had her back to the road. She had jeans on and I think she had a jacket on. And the male, he had his arms out like this. And I think he had a grey jumper on and his hair was quite short.
Quite short. What colour hair?
I think it was light.
Did you look at the man's face?
Slightly.
What can you remember about it?
He wasn't happy.
He wasn't happy?
No.
Any features about his face you can remember?
He was clean shaven, he didn't have a beard.
He's clean shaven, didn't have a beard. Describe her again.
She had light coloured jeans on with kind of long brown hair and a dark jacket with red bits in it.
And they were having a discussion?
A heated one, I would say.
Heated discussion? Right, OK.
See, when you first described the female?
Yes.
You said she had blonde hair and then you said she had brown. So was it blonde or brown?
I don't know.
Thanks, Niamh. Having carried out this experiment today, I think it adds a wee bit of doubt to Andrina Bryson's statement and how much she's actually seen. The bottom line is, she's drove by the first time and there's nothing that's drawn her attention to the couple standing up the lane. So whatever's drawing Andrina Bryson's attention to it, considering there's no much going on other than a couple talking, I really don't know.
The problem with eyewitness statements, as good as they are, some of the best evidence you can get, eyewitnesses are influenced. The moment I leant forward and became agitated and suggested that the couple were having an argument, that coloured Niamh's perception of that version of events, which then affects her statement to John.
18 months after identifying Luke Mitchell as the male on the path, the prosecution called Andrina Bryson to testify at his trial.
Andrina Bryson's asked, is the person you saw that day in this courtroom, can you see him? And she can't identify him.
That was a big moment for me. At the very least, I thought, well, that's, a massive hole in the Crown's case. Here's somebody who's actually willing to stand up and say, no, this is not the person. It takes a lot of guts to stand up there and, go against the grain and say, actually, no, this is wrong.
There's been pictures of this guy in the media for best part of 19 months. And when he's standing there in front of her, in court, she can't identify him. And she was the prosecution's star witness.
The present-day re-examination has now uncovered another line of inquiry and more potential suspects.
There's a great deal of irony here that Luke was a suspect. He was ever the only suspect. There was nobody else treated as a suspect or considered as a suspect. And yet, you didn't have to look very far back then for other people that should at least have been persons of interest.
I think we need to take a look at these two, the moped boys.
Gordon Dickey and John Ferris.
Aye. The moped, apparently it's a homemade moped. It's not got a silencer fitted. There's numerous witnesses speak to hearing this moped running about the area of the path between the two Newbattle and East houses. Just a short time later, we've got a witness who sees the moped against the wall, right at the V in the wall in the crime scene, right? Sees the moped leaning against the wall, but doesn't see them there.
What time was that at?
5:15.
The exact time that Jodi was murdered?
According to the prosecution's case.
So we've got those two, seen at 5 o'clock. Their mopeds seen at the V at 5:15. They're nowhere to be seen. After Jodi's been murdered,
yep.
That's kind of bizarre.
Following appeals by police, the moped boys came forward 5 days after the murder. One of the boys was Jodi's cousin, John Ferris.
This is Jodi's cousin, and he takes 5 days to come forward. Why would he do that? The police were appealing for anybody that was on the path or roundabout between 5 and 10 o'clock that night to come forward and just be eliminated. And these two didn't do that.
The moped boys were called as witnesses during the trial.
They were asked where they were when the bike was propped against the wall without them, because the witness could only see the bike, no people. And they said they couldn't remember. They couldn't remember where they were. They couldn't remember what they were doing. Most of their evidence was they couldn't remember anything about that day. We then find out that one of them, John Ferris, hacked all his hair off by himself with scissors the day after the murder.
In a dramatic moment during their testimony, the moped boys both denied murdering Jodi.
The defence actually put the questions to them directly. Did you kill Jodi? Directly. And obviously they both said no.
Here it says Judge Nimmo Smith names them and says it was clear they were in the firing line, but points out that neither was actually accused outright of murder. That's because they were just asked. Do you know the difference with that? They've got to say, I put it to you that you did murder Jodi Jones, instead of saying, did you murder Jodi Jones?
When someone's convicted and that conviction is questionable, and you look back, and you say, oh yeah, they questioned him and they put that all over the papers, but they didn't question these people, and nobody asked why. I didn't meet Luke until about 8 weeks after Jodi was murdered. So let's see. In 2003, my future was alternative health. Never in a million years would I have believed that I would end up taking a completely different route, studying the law, learning about wrongful convictions, and ending up doing a PhD in criminology. This case took me in a completely different direction.
Sandra Lean has continued to legally challenge the police treatment of Luke Mitchell during the murder investigation as grounds for a miscarriage of justice.
Luke had just turned 15 when he was detained on August 14, 2003. detained. He wasn't arrested, but he was taken to the police station and questioned for hours with no lawyer present. He asked for his mum and they wouldn't let him speak to her. He asked for a lawyer and they told him he wasn't entitled to one.
Do you get the idea, Luke? Everybody's speaking about you carrying knives. We've got all these people talking to the fact that you're a violent laddie. A violent laddie, okay? You're a violent boy, okay?
The police were becoming increasingly aggressive in an attempt to physically intimidate me. I requested to go to the toilet. I was taken to the toilet and I was standing at the urinal with two very large adult males shouting at me that I was just to confess, you little bastard. Just tell us what you did and we'll make it okay.
Luke Mitchell, at the age of 15, and therefore still a child, was interviewed for a lengthy period of time. Some, albeit not all, of that interview was then used in the case to convict him.
3 years later, Lord Justice General Lord Hamilton described the police officer's conduct as outrageous.
At times, the nature of the questioning was such that the questioner did not seem to be seriously interested in a response from the appellant, but rather endeavouring to break him down into giving some hoped-for confession by his overbearing and hostile interrogation. Such conduct, particularly where the interviewee was a 15-year-old youth, can only be deplored.
The Scottish Criminal Cases Review Commission concluded in 2014 that Luke Mitchell's human rights had been infringed during this interview.
Looking back now at how the police dealt with Luke Mitchell when he was interviewed, it beggars belief. There should have been no interview of a child without legal advice and support.
With their re-examination of the case drawing to a close, the former detectives review the evidence so far.
During the course of the investigation, we've uncovered what we would regard as a number of potential suspects that are basically in the same category as Luke Mitchell. So what we intend to do today, Mick and I, is we're going to go through each one at a time and we'll apply things like motive, ability, identification, etc. It's a tool that detectives have used for a long time, and it's been very effective in some very high-profile murder cases. Right, Mick.
Stephen Kelly.
Stephen Kelly, Jodi's sister's boyfriend. Identification.
With blood found on the T-shirt that contained Stephen Kelly's DNA.
There was DNA, male DNA, on the body, but it wasn't Luke's.
And the DNA related to Stephen Kelly?
Janine's boyfriend.
Janine's boyfriend. He then changed his statement, and by the time it got to court, it was totally different from the statement he provided at the start. In their first statement, they said that Luke's dog, Maya, was sniffing the air and was alerted to something. But then the statement they used at court, the dog didn't sniff the air and Luke went straight to the V. And it makes it look as if Luke knew where the body was. The condom man.
That condom was found to have what was described as fresh semen.
He would have been as strong a suspect, if not a stronger suspect, than Luke Mitchell.
Given that it was a young female and there was a condom found with semen, I think it should have had more significance than it apparently did.
Next we've got Gordon Dickey and John Ferris, the two that we've referred to throughout this as the Moped Boys.
John Ferris, a relative of Jodi's family, puts himself on the path at the time of the murder. His moped's seen at the time of the murder, near to the murder scene.
And he takes 5 days to come forward. Why would he do that?
He changes his appearance after the murder. Yeah, he cuts his hair.
Hacked all his hair off.
Opportunity.
Both had the opportunity. They both know the area very well. They'd know how to get away from the locus of the murder quickly.
Most of their evidence was they couldn't remember anything about that day.
Mark Kane stays nearby the locus. He stays in the college, which is not far from the locus. He habitually carries a knife. Next day, he turns up at his pal's house, Scott Forbes.
Mark Kane visited my flat in Leith the day after Jodi had been killed. He had big scratches on his face, 3.
So he's left the area. He's got injuries, scratches to his face, redness to his eyes.
He's the closest to the locus. It's just directly across a field. It's covert. You can't. I mean, you're out of sight.
Would this not be a perfect escape route?
Ah, definitely.
We come to the last person we're going to speak about today, and it's probably our biggest person of interest. From the whole reinvestigation John and I have carried out, this person features massively. He did feature at the time of the inquiry with the police, but for whatever reason, it didn't seem to go any further, and his name never came out. For various reasons, like I've said there, we can't name that individual just now.
We could go further, but we've got to be careful. Let's put it this way, when we started this investigation, he was in the periphery, but the further we went into it, the more he came to the fore, and he's now sitting there as our strongest potential suspect.
I believe he's right up there.
I totally believe that the police wanted a quick arrest because they were getting pressure from the public. A dangerous person was at large and they were in fear for their lives, basically. And what I'd say to them is, you still should be, because that person is still at large.
Journalist Bob Smith has sparked new interest in the case and convinced the Mail on Sunday to pick up the story.
What made you get interested in the Luke Mitchell case?
Well, I worked as a journalist for a Sunday newspaper for many years, and I did a lot of reporting on crime. And I was interested in miscarriage of justice, or alleged miscarriage of justice, putting information out there into the public domain that might change the narrative around the Luke Mitchell case. So I went to the Mail on Sunday. I said to them, his mum is willing to do a lie detector if you can help to arrange to get a polygraph expert to come in and test her. And I said, this is going to be a sensational story either way. Either she's going to fail it, and that's going to underline what the prosecution, the police, and some of the public and the media thought, because she had given him an alibi for the time that Jodi was apparently murdered. Or else she'll pass it. Can you imagine the eyebrows that will be raised if that happens?
His alibi was me, obviously, because he was in the house with me. Because I was working full-time, obviously I had to get help with the chores. That was his chore. Majority of the times he cooked the evening meal.
It was a big gamble on the part of Corinne to put herself forward to take a lie detector test. Here's the key witness, the key alibi witness, and she's so determined, so convinced that her story is true and her son is innocent that she's going to put herself through a polygraph test in the glare of a newspaper who would be taking pictures and who would publish the result, even if it went against her.
In February 2012, Corinne Mitchell took the lie detector test and agreed for the results to be published in the Mail on Sunday.
Did you falsify Luke's alibi regarding his whereabouts on the day of Jodi's death?
I faced numerous accusations. One of them being that I actually did the murder. Another one being that Luke did the murder and I helped him clean up. I'd burnt all his bloodied clothing in my log burner.
Did you burn any clothing or evidence that would incriminate Luke of Jodi's death?
No.
Did you lie in your court testimony during Luke's trial?
No.
She's passed it without, any hesitation, any suggestion that her answers were in any way vague or not 100% truthful. So, yeah, certainly that led me to think, yeah, I've got to keep pushing on with this and find out what other evidence and information there is in this case.
9 weeks later, from inside prison, Luke Mitchell also took the lie detector test.
Did you stab Jodi on the 30th of June 2003?
Corinne Mitchell had sensationally passed a lie detector test. Luke Mitchell requested that he also be allowed to take the test from inside prison.
We decided, right, let's see if we can get Luke to get a polygraph, because that again would be, well, compared to his mother passing a lie detector, that would be an even more dramatic, sensational twist in the story if he passed as well.
The polygraph examiner tells Luke Mitchell to close his eyes, to block out distractions from the prison floor.
Did you know for certain where Jodi's body would be found? Were you present when Jodi was stabbed?
No.
Did you stab Jodi on the 30th of June 2003?
No.
As you can imagine, it caused quite a media sensation at the time, and people obviously asking questions. Could this indeed be a miscarriage of justice?
You, as a professional journalist, you deal with people telling you the truth and telling you lies regularly. As a whole, right from the start, what's your opinion on Luke Mitchell?
Looking at all the different strands of the case that cause concern and raise question marks, like lack of forensic evidence, question marks over the reliability of eyewitnesses, some of the behaviour of the police, and then layer on top of that the things I was directly involved with. There was reasonable doubt, and there was enough doubt about the conviction, enough question marks, that we need to keep looking at this case. Is it possible? Is the real murderer of Jodi Jones still out there walking about while an innocent man's spent a long time in jail?
I'm going to go down and check on Corinne again. I did speak with her last night, but her health has deteriorated so badly over the last few months. Every time I go down, every time she doesn't answer the phone, every time I leave, it terrifies me that that's going to be the last time, and that next time she's not going to be there, or I'm going to go down and find her dead. She's been a figure of so much hate in this area for so long. How are you feeling?
Pretty crap.
Right.
To be honest.
Have you got? Are you back at the hospital this week?
Well, I was supposed to be back yesterday, but they cancelled.
Freezing in here, Corinne. Absolutely freezing.
Yes, it is. It is, but one gets used to it.
Yeah, I mean,
eventually, you do what you have to do.
Well, not too many people have to do that. Even Luke's got heat and water.
That's true. That's true. And he has a toilet.
He has a toilet, yeah.
Yes, yes, it's a wee joke we have. I've got to slop out and he doesn't.
Yeah.
And he's the one in prison. I have nightmares about popping my clogs before he gets released. I really, really do, because my mum, she was determined to see her grandson out where he belonged. Unfortunately, she was taken before her time, and I worry that that's going to happen to me. But it's not in my hands, basically, now. It's not in my hands, it's in the hands of fate.
This is where we started with investigation, and we're now at the end. Every time you come back here, it's a horrible feeling of dread. What happened here was beyond terrible. 14-year-old girl murdered.
I do believe Luke Mitchell suffered a serious miscarriage of justice and was let down by the legal system. And he was also, in my opinion, let down by a jury. I can't understand how they could find him guilty beyond reasonable doubt at that trial.
I would take it one step further. 27 years as a police officer, my gut instinct has never let me down. I'm not basing my opinion or my assumptions on a gut instinct alone, but on the investigation we've carried out here. In my opinion, Luke Mitchell did not commit this crime and he's innocent.
As a scientist, I don't take a view on innocence or guilt. We tend to work on the evidence. In my view, in this case, there simply seemed to be an insufficiency of evidence for a conviction.
Until we have answers to all the questions surrounding this case will never go away.
Luke Mitchell's defence team have lodged 3 appeals between 2008 and 2011, all of which have been rejected.
So many lives were destroyed here. Jodi lost her life, but so many others have lost so much because the truth's just never been found.
I have a vision. It's not a dream because I'm not asleep, but I have a vision. I see Luke at the top of these stairs, smiling. He's got his long hair again, tied back in a ponytail, wearing sunglasses, and he's smiling because he's been released. It's something I just keep in there. I just keep in there.